Morning. Just a thought. I'd probably write about it, but then no one would read it, and it would go into the ether. It would take forever to get to anywhere. So I'm just saying it out loud. But I was thinking, because I feel so separate from what everybody's saying and all these readings. Like everything's so fucking backwards. So I was thinking, because everybody's all up on like union and getting together and everything. What's the only thing that keeps us powerless? The only thing that keeps us powerless is keeping us separate, right? Like power is in manipulating the masses, for instance. And then this is how I think. I'm like, I take something, and then I'm like, okay, now let's go to the complete opposite. What's fundamental? What is power? So I think about the universe, I think about existence, I think about God and godness, sourceness, as experienced. And nothing happens in isolation except the word and the concept. Like I wrote yesterday a little beginning of a piece that, like peace, like isn't that, it's hard to say anything in English to anybody that doesn't recognize the backwards and inverse nature of our language, and like of most languages, because given enough time, they all can be inverted. But peace, I want peace, I want peace. Peace is also just a piece, and that has a form inside our mind. That has a form inside our mind that needs to be separated from a piece of something. So I want peace, I want peace. It's like, okay, cool, you got peace. You got peace is something, and it's separate from other pieces. Right? Just as an example. Because it has to do with what I'm talking about. I was writing an essay, or whatever I was writing, about Einstein and the theory of relativity. And I like him. I used to really like him. But the more I learn, the more I realize he was a victim as well. I mean, that's how I like to think about him, because I want to think that he was a good guy. And he didn't know how heavily he was being manipulated, or used, or abused. But to learn more, you'd have to read my essay. I'd have to write it. The theory of relativity, and everybody's all like quantum. Everybody shows quantum shows this, quantum shows that. Quantum shows that how easily people can be manipulated. I'm gonna go sit down. Because the way to get anybody to believe anything is to lie just a little bit about it. That's my dog. I love him so much. Hey, Murphy. So cute. It's like it's fucking early. Or cold. He just likes to fucking chill at this time. You lie a lot about something, and it's hard to believe because it's so far from the truth. But you lie a little bit, and it's like, oh yeah, and then you believe the truth part, and then we've been conditioned to be lazy and just forget about the untrue part. The theory of relativity and this constant speed of light and entanglement, and everything is connected, and space-time and space-time curvature, and all that bullshit in gravity. All of it is based on these theories that fundamentally, like it's part of the name, like he came out with the special theory of relativity first. And the special theory of relativity is special because it only applies to a very special uh, set of circumstances. It only applies specially. And you're like, okay, well, what's the parameters? How inclusive is the parameters? Einstein's special theory of relativity applies only when there is no gravity. So, where's that? Now, you could make a bunch of conclusions if about world and existence and whatnot when you don't take into account gravity. And that's basically what he realized. He's like, well, how do we solve gravity? It's like, well, if you take gravity out, uh, it like solves its own problem. It's only a problem when it exists. So if we take it out, then it's almost all the equations, um, more or less work. It's like, okay, cool. That's cool for like a thought experiment, but we live with the phenomenon we call gravity. So, what occurs in isolation? If we're really honest and we keep our minds open to the possibility of um, not knowing, the most probable and reasonable answer to that is nothing. It's like, well, the universe happens in isolation. Well, hypothetically, and like all existence, all possibility allowing, there's more than one universe. There's a universe, our universe is inside another universe. That's easier to conceive than not, right? Because like our cultural meme, our social world exists in a planetary world exists in the solar system, or solar system exists in a galaxy, in a cluster of galaxies, and like a region of space, a spiral arm, like everything exists in something. So maybe our universe exists in something. It's probable. It's more probable than not. Just we're constantly perceiving new things that we weren't perceived before that are in another thing or over top or in above and whatever, and that's exactly what's going on in the world right now, in existence, in consciousness. Consciousness in something in consciousness. So what happens in isolation? Nothing. How does creation occur? But the blending and the gathering and the getting together or something of two different seeming things, but really the same thing, just different by degree. Like gender principle, male, female, masculine, feminine, divine. So the only thing that really limits our power is our ability to connect. Connecting is fundamental. And I guess my irritation is everybody's just trying to solve their problems by using their problems. And, oh fuck, yeah, it was Einstein who did say, trying to solve a problem with the same mindset that created the problem is a fucking problem. You know, you need to kind of elevate your mindset beyond the problem to find a solution. And it's like coming into union with yourself and all the bullshit that I keep hearing everywhere. And this is like, and I'm being blunt and mean maybe, but I'm speaking of the most lovely, wonderful, and like spiritually elevated people on our planet, with that are voicing that are voicing themselves, because not everybody's voicing themselves in the same way. However, just got like, you got to do it with yourself first. You got to heal yourself first. You got to do this first. You got to do that first. That sounds a lot like the same fucking problem we've always had. But you can't take the truth out of the truth completely. You can't take the truth out of us. You can't take the truth out of existence without taking out existence. And look at all of us trying to find inner union. How? By posting on YouTube? By sharing our information with other people? By reading and asking and connecting? Maybe that's fundamental. Maybe that's really how we're all finding this like inner union, is by connecting with each other. You know, and then we get to the precipice, we get so close, and then we drop off because we're like, no, that's not how we should do it. We should do it by being one with ourselves. Well, I'll tell you, I'm fucking unionized, and the very first, most radical, physically intertwined with spiritual, like union with self-experience that I ever felt, where I was like, whoa, this is another world. There's something's happening to me that is beyond me. It came from and it came with an experience with someone else. Now, I don't know if that someone else was there, but it felt like it. And that someone else was there to me. Union with myself, with like the most dramatic initial stage of masculine feminine inner unity, occurred in hyperdimensionally within my third dimensional consciousness with someone else. So maybe everybody just got it wrong. Maybe we should be doing everything we can to connect and to get together with other people. Because it doesn't matter, you're not right or wrong about anything until you apply it to the world, until it is able to bounce off somebody else's reality. You know? Like, you can think you've got all the answers, and then you go to someone with all of your answers, and you find out that actually you're just abusive, or that you're being abused. division, vision, unity, unit, singular, E. Because what's our fear? Not having money. Monad, money. Not having something to eat. Going hungry. Getting in trouble with the law. All law. Legal. But none of that's real. All of that depends on our believing. And I assure you that the fundamental basis by which it applies its power is deeper than the physical principles that you think it depends on. Well, if I don't do this and I don't do that, they're going to mail me or they're going to email me and they're going to find... No. They can't find you. They can't touch you as much as you understand your invulnerability. So look at that. Vulnerability, to be not vulnerable is to be in vulnerability. Now, you can't take all the truth out of the truth. So there's something actually still true to that. But it takes like a hypersensitive awareness. It's like fifth dimension, fourth dimension, third dimension. I assure you that the third dimension, we never leave here. It doesn't go anywhere. In fact, we're all trying to get here. This is the bee's knees. It's integrating multiple dimensions in one space. And the third dimension is the hardest dimension of existence to incorporate more than these multiple dimensions. It's like the most physical while remaining non-physical. "5D Earth is 3, 4, and 5. Sometimes 6. And constantly 9. We need to stop trying to figure everything else out on our own and instead figure out how to get closer to each other, all of us. Because that's the only truth that we can rely on. No problem is solved single-handedly. No single-handed problem solved affects one hand. Right? The biggest trick being pulled... I gotta fucking cut my mustache. The biggest trick over our eyes, blinding, is folding this prison around us and making it look like freedom. Right? Like, look at us. They interfere. Oh, I'm gonna take this down. You don't say that or whatever. But they're laughing. They're laughing because their hope is that we'll all get together and we'll all feel like we're together in unity. But what do you call a bunch of fish, they get together inside a net. Trapped. Dinner, a commodity. And that's us. Each of us singly sitting at a screen where we're being screened, where we're screening each other. But almost to like the decimal, almost to the T. Everybody's sitting there in their room by themselves because we're disconnected from the people around us, because society has over time been structured to separate. And we give all this credence to the family unit when there's nothing natural about it. It's too small. It's too segregated. We haven't existed in the nuclear family for like hundreds of thousands of years. We're tribes. We're communities. And I'll tell you, love for yourself, like complete and utter, love with God and spirit and nature and universe and source, it can't be separated. It isn't separate from the way that we love each other. I go further and say it can't be achieved unless we practice that love for each other. And that we do anything we can to overcome everything we must to get together. All of us. And not through screens, but over a meal, around a fire, sleeping under the same view of the stars, even if it's under the same roof. Stop blaming each other, stop blaming ourselves, and just do. We just gotta do the thing we know we must. We just skip the steps that we think we have to do to achieve our goal and try breaking the fake rules, the illusions, and just take the goal. I don't know, it's just a random thought, and I think I'm done. Because I could go on, but I'm talking to no one. I love you, though. Peace out. Always.